Hi there. Welcome to the From Lab to Launch podcast by Qualio, where we share inspiring stories from the people on the front lines of life sciences. Tune in and leave inspired to bring your life-saving products to the world. Now let's get started with Robert, Qualio founder and CEO, and our show host.
Charleen Solomon is the founder and inventor of AriseQ2 and the Q2 solution. She has been in the healthcare industry for over 20 years and has a first-hand understanding of the need for a new patient-friendly and caregiver-friendly healthcare product. Having trained as a nurse and with a marketing and sales background, Charleen has brought 2 other successful patented products from scratch to the market. She also has sold 2 additional patents in her career. Charleen's broad-based experience includes overseeing many aspects of running a business, from managing over 300 employees to directing all major departments such as sales, marketing, human resources, and business development. As you are probably aware, it is extremely difficult for caregivers to adhere to the Q2 protocol, which is a protocol designed around turning patients every 2 hours in healthcare settings to prevent pressure ulcers and change things like incontinence pads. And this is difficult because of time and staff limitations. Charleen's Q2 solution not only saved time, but made the caregiver's job much easier. We love talking to the courageous people on the front lines of healthcare today, and we were delighted to have Charleen share her experience with us. Let's bring her in. I'm really excited to learn about your background and your journey, because helping demystify the path around building, launching, and scaling companies in healthcare, and particularly those that save and extend lives, is something that I'm a personal advocate for. So thank you for sharing that story as well.
I'm so honored to be able to do this, because thank you for bringing light to this, because being a little guy growing into a big guy is hard. It's really hard. And people think, oh, I'm just going to start my own business and I'm just going to do it on my own. And I don't like the way my boss is working, so I'm going to start out and do it myself. And holy smokes, it's hard. So you have to have the passion to follow it all the way through. You know, if you don't have that passion, and if you can't live on top ramen noodles for at least 2 to 3 years, you can forget it.
Ramen noodles weren't quite the thing in Ireland when I was starting Qualio, but I think I understand your sentiment, Charleen.
Maybe potatoes.
Listen, I'll never say no to a good potato in any of its very delicious forms. So before we kick into your story and that journey, Charleen, can you tell us a little bit about how you're helping like nurses, caregivers, and patients at AriseQ2?
What we have created is, with the Q2, is 75 to 80,000 nurses are permanently injured, turning and changing patients. And this is yearly. And
wow.
I need to help stop that. As a hospice nurse myself, it was just so difficult. You're so exhausted. You're so tired. And I thought there has to be a better way to do this. And so how I wanted to help my peers was to make their job easier. And so that's why I invented the Q2, because the Q2 actually takes the weight of the patient completely off of the nurse. And it literally takes half the time to turn and change a patient than it does with a regular chucks. And so I'm giving them back not only their time, but also their health.
Yeah. And maybe for people who don't know, I mean, turning patients, people might think, well, why do I have to turn people quite so often? And it's every couple of hours, right?
Yes, it's every 2 hours with a bedbound patient, or a patient that just gets out of surgery. They have to be turned every 2 hours because of the skin will pool and the blood will coagulate in one specific spot, and the skin will break down. And what happens is it starts to form what's called a pressure ulcer or bed sore, and that starts to form within 2 hours. So if that body part isn't moved, then that bed sore starts to break down the skin. And what happens is because there's not enough nurses to turn the patients, bed sores are just prevalent. And we have over 70,000 people a year die of pressure ulcers because they go sepsis.
It's like an epidemic people don't ever really talk about. And what I've learned, just it's often the simple things, or what appear like simple things, that's where a lot of the pain is, and where a lot of improvement can be made, right?
Absolutely. And that's part of the problem, is just even talking about it. You know, I call it the dirty little secret in hospitals is the pressure ulcers. Yeah. And the second thing is nursing injuries. And so if you can't talk about it, that's probably one of the most difficult things. In the beginning, when I started this 6 years ago, it's gotten so much better now. So much light is being made now for nursing injuries and patient pressure ulcers, that we're starting to form actual groups of nurses that are gathering together going, this has to get better. It has to get better.
And how does the Q2 solution work? I'm curious, because I'm trying to imagine the effort of turning somebody. And this is a two-person job normally?
Actually, most of the time it's a one-person job,
person, wow.
Which is why I invented it. And so a standard Chucks is just a flat incontinent pad. It's an absorbent material for incontinence. And a nurse will roll the patient on their side and hold the patient up with one hand and clean with the other. Now, with my product, I simply put extending supports on both sides so that when you turn the patient, the support attaches to the bed rail. And then I put in a tearaway center, like a paper towel, that the center actually tears away, and the weight is completely off of the nurse. And so you're now hands-free, and you can clean the patient, and there's no weight on the nurse.
How did you come up with that? It sounds, all these things sound easy when it gets explained, but maybe you could tell me a bit about how you came around that idea.
Well, as a hospice nurse, you're by yourself. And I was a traveling nurse. And so I was dealing with a gentleman who was 95 years old, and he was a pillar in the community. And he had probably 25 to 30 people a day coming to say goodbye to him. He was an FFA president and a dairy farmer, and a very proud man. And he was in renal failure. And so you had to keep him looking very fresh. And it was important to me to give him that dignity, you know?
Yeah.
And my replacement nurse did not come in. So I was on my second shift, my 12-hour second shift, and my back was on fire. I thought I had ice on my back with an ACE bandage, and I thought, oh my gosh, I can't turn him one more time, but I need to. And so I went into my car and I sat down, and my sweatshirt got caught in the door. And I looked at it and I thought, So I took my sweatshirt and I tucked it under him. And then I took my scissors. I attached the one end of the sweatshirt to the bed rail, and I cut out the center, and it supported him completely. And all that weight was off of me. And I thought, I need this. So I went into the procurement office at Sutter and I said, I need this. Can you get this for me? And we looked, and there was nothing like it out there. And this is my third patent. My brain just works like that. Yeah. So long story short, I did a patent search, wasn't out there. So I decided this time I'm going to bring it to market myself. I had sold my other 2 patents outright without bringing it to market and having a proven product. And this time I wanted to have a proven product and then sell the patent.
That's amazing. So from a jumper cut in your sweater's cut on the door to a product, I'm always amazed at where people get insights from. And I think the only consistent thing is it's always something surprising. And it's always that singular moment people often have. So that's phenomenal. How did you go from that moment? Because I would think a lot of people, doing like the work you do and other work in healthcare in an arena where there are so many barriers oftentimes to bringing new products. We can get to that in a moment. People jerry-rig things all the time, but it stays that way. It's like you ask Charleen or Rob or Tina, like they have this thing they do and it never goes beyond that. I mean, how did you go, and maybe your experience helped with this, but how did you go from this could be a thing to this is a thing? Now you've a company, right? And you've been around for some years doing this and it's successful.
Yes. It was hard. I actually thought, well, let me just try this and see if my peers like it, right? So I decided just to do a prototype and just to see what my nursing staff thought of it. So I did one made out of cloth, and I did Velcro instead of what it is now, which you can see at AriseQ2.com. And there's a video that shows the whole experience of how to turn and change it.
We can link that on the show notes.
Yeah. So my peers were like, they just went like this. Why didn't I think of that?
Yeah.
It's so simple. But as it turns out, it's not simple at all, because all of the manufacturing are set up for chucks that are a standard 32 by 36. Their machines are all set up for that. And I have a 72-inch footprint. Mine's bigger. And so, but the need was so great. And I thought everybody I showed it to was like, Charleen, you've got to do this. You just have to do this. And so I thought, well, let me enter a competition and see. Let's just see how if this really is a good thing. So I entered a competition, medical competition, and I won first place. And
Congrats.
There was a doctor and a VA doctor in the room, and he pulled me aside afterwards and he said, Charleen, he said, my nurses are soldiers and they're being injured on the front line. And I need to do something to stop this. He said, we put in ceiling lifts. We paid $21 million per facility for these ceiling lifts. And the nurses aren't using them. They're only used 3% of the time. He said, I want this in our hospitals. And so that really gave me the encouragement
Awesome
to
validation.
move forward.
Yeah. Sounds like a lot of things. You either have a gift or things just happen in a certain way, but the reality is often different. Can you tell me about some kind of low points or challenges that kind of got in your way? Because I always find that's when some of the greatest learning happens, is when we were wrong.
The hardest part was finding a manufacturer.
Yeah.
That was the hardest.
Yeah. How did you go about that?
So a lot of phone calls just to see if anyone was interested in making it. And a lot of people were interested in making it. But then once they saw the product and they saw the center is a cutout piece, they were like, we're not set up for that. That doesn't work for us. And you have extending straps. We're not set up for that either. So, and you're a startup and you have no backing. So the answer is no.
Yeah.
And it was no, 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 no.
That must have been tough.
Until I went to a company based out of Ohio that just did prototyping, and he was retired from Procter & Gamble and he worked in the incontinent division. And he said, I showed him the product and he said, Charleen, there's heroes and zeros and this is a hero. I'll make it for you. So he made it.
Out of curiosity to share with people about the tenacity, first of all, how many people do you think you had to contact to find that one yes? And how long would that have taken you?
It was about 200.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. I was thinking maybe 100, 200. That's impressive.
Yeah. And it took over 2 years. Yeah.
How did you keep going through that period?
I kept working.
Yeah.
I had to work, and I did it before work, on my lunch hour. I did it after work. I worked on the weekends. I worked on, I would work 3 days on, 4 days off. So on my days off, I worked. And then I sold my house and I used the funds and I quit my job. And I used the funds from my house, and I went all in.
Yeah. You kicked the
All
stool
in.
out, you went all in, no safety net.
I went all in, and everybody told me I was nuts. They
Yeah.
were just like, Charleen, what are you doing? You know, but I believed in it. I just believed in it so much because I had not gotten a no yet, right? I started
Yeah.
getting prototypes that were disposable because I wanted it to be disposable. I wanted it to be a tearaway center like a paper towel. And I got to that point. And when I got to that point and I started testing it on patients, and the nurses started seeing it and the doctors started seeing it, they were just like, when can we get this? So then it took a long time to get the backing. I had to get investors. And so I went to friends and family. And my brother he put his neck on the line for me. And he asked his very wealthy friends, and they each put in 100,000. There was 3. And so that added to my 100,000. So I had 400,000 to work with. And that's about what it costs to bring it to market.
Wow. And after that, were you able to, I think you have a background in sales and marketing. Was that enough then to start generating revenue and start getting return?
Yes. And we landed a very large contract with Dignity Health, who just merged with Common Spirit. And now they're the second largest healthcare facility in the United States. So we're doing well. And we just landed a contract with the VA. So we're doing well. We have another test coming up with Kaiser Permanente, a trial with Kaiser Permanente.
Yeah.
Yep. Our manufacturer is Standard Fiber Textiles, and they are incredible to me. They're a gift. I'm not kidding. They so believe in this product that they gave me a credit line. You know,
Wow.
I mean, that was a gift.
Yeah. That was at the beginning, or that was early?
It was early on.
Oh, that's impressive, because they can be incredibly difficult to get. I know I've heard a lot of stories.
Yeah. And especially during this pandemic, people finally saw that nurses really are frontline workers, and they are the heroes that help people every single day. And I went to them, and honestly, I just asked them to help me. I need help, and I got it.
That's incredibly inspiring, Charleen. Appreciate you sharing that. I want to go back to something you said here at the beginning. I think this was when the moment happened where you got the idea before you went out to your car and had some self-thinking time to try and solve your challenges. You had to cover another shift. And I know, looking at the past year we've had with COVID being as impactful as it is during the current pandemic, there's a lot of shifts that need to be covered by other people. I'm curious as to, just with that in mind, how has the Q2 solution being valuable or used throughout the past year?
Yes. With the Q2, instead of needing 2 nurses to hold the patient, you can use 1. And because it takes half the time, the nurses aren't so exhausted. And so that we were just approved through Dignity in infection control for COVID. And so that was another gift that I wasn't expecting. And so it's kind of like just an added bonus that happened, that we were approved for that. Timing is really important. And the fact that I didn't give up, that was really important.
It's everything.
Because there was times when I had no money, like nothing. I mean, I'm talking like, I thought, how am I going to pay my PG&E bill? Do I pay my PG&E bill, or do I go to the grocery store? Right? So you pay your PG&E bill and you find a can of soup somewhere.
Or some noodles.
Find those noodles.
Yeah. So I think a lesson learned for me just listening to your story is, I think tenacity is something that people forget about, or that I guess intelligently persisting is the way I often talk about this, is when the data supports you should stop, that's the time to stop, but not stopping just because it's hard. So just a ton of respect for you for persevering during those times and getting out to the other side.
Thank you.
I'm curious.
I was just thinking that what kept me moving forward, honestly, was that I wasn't doing it for myself, just for myself. There was nurses out there that I completely respect, that I knew had been injured. And I just thought, I don't want this to keep happening. So I had a mission to accomplish. And so that kept me moving forward too.
Yeah. And I'm curious if you look back on the lessons learned over the journeys so far, besides the persistence, having a mission vision that's larger than yourself, which you clearly had to keep you going through those challenges, any other key lessons learned you want to share with listeners today for them if they're embarking on a journey similar to yours right now?
I think you have to just be really flexible. And I think you can't let one thing just blow you out of the water, because you take so many different hits all at once sometimes. Take a deep breath, stop and take a deep breath, walk outside. There's times when I'd get so mad about something that I would go outside and just throw firewood around, right? Because there's no one else to take it out on. And your team changes when you start off with your nuclear team and you start growing and positions start changing and people start changing. You have to be flexible, and you have to listen. And sometimes you just want to say, can you just do it? Please just do it. Instead, you have to listen and you go, I understand. Okay, I understand. So,
well, this has been incredibly interesting for me to listen, and I'm inspired by your story, Charleen. I appreciate you sharing that today. Is there anything you'd like to kind of add to have us add to the show notes or anything like that, or anything you'd like to share with the people about what you're doing at AriseQ2 before we finish up?
Well, I would just like everyone to know that with the AriseQ2, we are helping to solve the pressure ulcer problem in the world. And so please take a look at our program. Please take a look at our video, and please pass the message forward, to nurses and to doctors and hospitals, how this can really help solve a problem. And it's a massive problem. Hospitals spend $250 billion a year on nursing injuries and pressure ulcers.
Wow. That's a big problem, and I'm thankful, I'm sure everybody is, that you're working to solve that. So thank you very much for joining today. I'm definitely leaving this chat inspired. So thank you for that. Stay safe, and looking forward to keeping in touch, Charleen. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of From Lab to Launch, brought to you by Qualio. If you like what you've heard, please subscribe and give the show a positive review. It really helps us out. For more information about Qualio, our guest today, or to be a guest on a future episode, please refer to the show notes. Until next time.